using the Pattern Options panel in Illustrator. So the Panel Options panel allows us to create patterns in a more straightforward visual way. So it's a great pattern generator. It makes it a lot easier. So let's just go ahead and do that. First, let's make some objects on our artboard that we are going to be a pattern. So if I use my rectangle tool, and let's just make a box. And if I want to add something that would be more of a repeating type pattern, I can create a circle. And remember, my shortcut keys for these tools: Shift constrains my proportion, Alt drags from the center. So I can go on my anchor points here, hold down my Alt key, and have the capability of making perfect circles. And I'm using my smart guides to line things up. One more here. So I'm holding Shift, I'm holding the Alt key to drag out from the center, and I'm using my smart guides to line them up. So now if this were my pattern, let's go ahead and select it. So I'm using my selection tool to click and drag around it. And I'm going to go up under my object menu, and I'm going to choose Pattern in the lower section and Make. So what will happen is I'll get this little warning box or a little note that says a new pattern has been added to my swatches panel. Automatically, this pattern will be updated to my swatches panel. So it's added and it will be updated as I work through it. I'll go ahead and click OK. And I see a lot happening here out in my artboard. Now, if I had other items on my artboard, those other objects would disappear. I'm able to preview the tile of this pattern, which is really nice. This allows me to manage. I can modify the pattern right here. I can also add objects to the pattern if I'd like to. So I am in pattern editing mode right now. And one of the indicators of that is up here. It's almost like a breadcrumb trail where I can see that I'm inside a level, so to speak. So looking at what we have in our pattern options, of course I can name this right now. I can give this pattern a name. That name will then get updated in my swatches panel. If I look, everything right here is dimmed. So I'm seeing a preview of how this pattern would tile, but it's dimmed. And that option is right here where it says dim copies to. Right now mine are at 70%. If I turn that off, you can see that they are all equal at 100%. It makes it a little tricky to see and focus on what I'm editing. The show tiles. The show tile edge, right now I see what looks to be a blue bounding box around. If I turn this off, that disappears. So it's kind of nice to see where the edge of my pattern tile is at. I can also resize. Now I'm jumping around here a bit. I'm going to go back up where we have width and we have height. So we have a width text box and a height text box, and this will resize the tile. It will increase the space around the perimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this so they're linked, and if I just simply even make this to 1 inch, I'm going to press tab. You can see how now it pushed out my tile a little bit, so it's not as tight. So that's a really nice visual to see how this will look. My copies, again towards the bottom, allows me to see my number. Now if you count here, you're seeing 5 by 5, which is what my copies are indicating. If I change this to just a 3 by 3, it maybe isn't as overwhelming, but yet you can see what's happening. Now if you're going to be applying this tile of repeating pattern to an object, and you're going to have quite a few, then you probably want to view it at a little bit higher just to see what that will look like. I'm going to go back to a little bit smaller, less overwhelming. I also have a type menu, a tile type menu here towards the top, and this will allow me to arrange my tiles in a certain way. So right now I have the simple basic grid. If I do a brick, it lays it out as though you were laying bricks to build, say, a wall. So they're staggered, and you can see brick by row, and here's a brick by column. So they are you know, just shifted in a vertical way where the others was horizontal. And then you can do an interesting with a hex type pattern where it comes out from the hex shape. And that's by column, and here's hex by row, just a bit different orientation. I'll go back to the basic grid, which is the default. So there you have working with this pattern options panel. It is a newer feature in Illustrator, and it works quite nicely to edit our patterns.